Welcome to the Ending Sexploitation podcast, where we decode sexual harm and provide you with active solutions. I'm your host, Kaylee McNamara. All right, well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Ending Sexploitation podcast. Today, I'm joined by the incredible VP of Communications at Nicosi, Tim Nestor. Tim, how's it going?
It's great. Thank you. Thanks for letting me join on screen this time. I get to hear you and Danny talk all the time, so this is great.
Tim is part of every single episode. I don't know if people know. They might occasionally hear us say, hey Tim, can you pull that up? And you have featured on a couple of episodes yourself, but it's nice to have you in front of the camera.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We got a lot to talk about, so I'm glad to be here. And Danny getting some well-deserved break from all of this, so I'm happy to step in and chat with you about. We have so many things going on.
So many things are going on. There's a couple of headlines and news articles that I want us to react to on the issues of both Roblox and Instagram. So these platforms are always in the news lately, it seems, but that means that there's always something to talk about. Tim, you've been doing a deep dive on Roblox lately. Now, I know that we've spoken about it on and off here in the past, but it's one of those topics that is so important to return to. And so many people might be confused. If you don't have an account yourself, you don't really know, what is this? How does it work? What is Roblox? And what's the state of the landscape right now?
Yeah, Roblox is, people think of it as just another video game. I think a lot of people, myself included, I thought, oh, it's like Minecraft, and kids build in Minecraft, and I never played it, but my kids like it, and it's probably fine. Roblox is not just a standalone game. It's a platform, and they even describe themselves as that. They're a platform where you can connect with people. I think on their website it even says reimagining the way people connect or something like that. Their whole idea is human connection. It's almost more of a social media platform targeted at kids than it is a gaming platform. But there's like over 6 million experiences. Most of them are some sort of game where you click on something, you adopt a pet, you build a house, you play through a story. They have all different kinds of experiences. And I just want to say this up front. Many of them are fine. Like they're not inappropriate. Maybe even most of them. I don't know what the ratio is. Many of them are just goofy, silly things that kids have made, or maybe even adults have made that are just innocent and fine. Many of them are not. Like some of the most popular ones are really well thought out and sadly really unmonitored environments. There's one called, I think it's called Brookhaven RP is like the most popular one. And people are calling it a Grand Theft Auto Light, where it's just an open city. You can go and explore, talk to other people. There's everything from clubs and nightlife to houses, and people can make their own little role-playing areas where it's private for just you and them. And I was able to access this. I just tried it again this morning just to see. And I created an account and said I was 5 years old, and I was able to access all of this stuff. I just said I was 5.
Wow.
And most of these apps are rated for 5 and above. Some are rated for teens or for adults, and they're pretty clear in what they're trying to accomplish, what they're trying to do. But I'm talking about the ones that are saying, this is kid-friendly. And I went on there as a 5-year-old, and I searched for dating experiences, and I was able to find dozens of dating simulators and a lot of titles that are confusing, but at a closer look, you realize, oh, this is where you're rating someone based on their looks or whether or not you would want to marry them. Or it's all this stuff about romance and dating, and I got to tell you, it gets really mature really quickly. And it really blurs that line between what is fun, imagination, and what is really inappropriate for young kids to be experiencing. So, yeah.
Wow, Tim, thank you for sharing this. And that's crazy for a 5-year-old account to have access to that kind of thing. And I think when people hear this too, it's important to emphasize these are like a virtual environment, but you're interacting with other real people. So it's not like a game where it's just you and the computer going back and forth. When I was young and played video games, it was just me against the computer. I think my mom didn't let me go and into the environments where you could talk with strangers. But that's what most of this is.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing is, I realized I created this account and I was not prompted at all to, hey, go talk to your parents, go get them to submit their email so they can verify. Like, I just put in my birth date as I forget which date I picked, something in 2020, which is
Mhm.
mind blowing to me. And there was no checks, no. I mean, there's a terms of service in your inbox when you go to your account if you want, but you don't have to look at any of that. You don't have to agree to anything. It's not asking me to go get mom or dad to check in on this. It just gives me access immediately to everything I'd want to see. They have made changes. I remember when I tried this a few years ago when they were on our 2024, no, yeah, 2024 Dirty Dozen list, I think, or 2023.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Messages came in instantly to me when I created an account as a child. This time that didn't happen. My direct messages are turned off by default. So there are changes that have been made, but as soon as you join an experience, chat is open. You can talk to anybody who's in there. So I realized quickly you could pretend to be whatever age you want and start talking to
Mm.
whoever you want. And I mean, as we'll talk about with this story, this is what happened to this family where this 13-year-old thought he was talking to a 16-year-old and really quickly took the conversation to a different platform, Discord, and it can happen to any other platform, and things got pretty devastating pretty quickly for that kiddo. So
Yeah, and let's pull up that article and we can talk about that specific case, but I also want to emphasize what you just said, where a child account could have the direct messages turned off by default. So that
yeah,
sounds great. And in, a press release about safety
hmm,
updates, it sounds like an incredible victory. But then as soon as you go into an online interactive game with strangers, they can still chat you.
yeah,
That almost
yeah,
seems deceptive to me. If
yeah,
I was a parent of a child,
hmm,
I would assume that nobody can message them if because of that safety update.
yeah.
So,
Experience chat or in-game chat, as some people might think of it, is on by default, even for a 5-year-old who creates an account with no parental setup required of any kind. Hmm.
that's just so crazy. And especially in today's day
Yeah.
and age where we know that chatting interactive features between adults and strangers is inherently incredibly high risk for grooming
Yeah.
and abuse. It happens on any platform that allows it.
Oh, Haley, I meant to mention they even created what looks like a kid version of Omegle. You're familiar with Omegle, where it's like talk to a
Oh,
stranger,
yeah.
meet a stranger. They have an actual, and they
Yes.
probably have many of them. I just saw one in the top little list of recommended for me. Talk to a stranger, and it just had two people looked like they were saying, "Oh, hi, how are you?" Like it was little thumbnail was two strangers talking to each other. So I immediately realized, like, yeah, that's the loophole is no direct messages, but jump into an experience and talk to a stranger.
And you can
Anyway,
do it.
yeah.
And that would be it would show their avatars, right? So they would be talking with the
Yes.
stranger.
It's
They
not the
wouldn't
same as having
visually
your
see
webcam
them.
on. Sure.
But in
Right.
some ways, that could be even more dangerous for a child because maybe the other
Right.
person could still pretend to be around your age or pretend to have a different
For
identity,
sure.
pretend to be younger.
For sure.
Wow,
And there's
that is
nothing really
so
stopping you from
disturbing.
saying, "Hey, join my Discord and we can have more fun or whatever." And because this thing really limits what we
Mhm.
can do, and there's lots of ways to lure them to a much less regulated space. And I know we're not
Yeah.
talking about Discord right now, which has its own huge web of issues. But yeah, it's easy. Be really straightforward to just say, "Let's go to this other platform. Here's the address," and go there.
But man, to have a on this game, especially accessible to children as young as 5, a
Yeah.
version of Omegle, this chat roulette, Omegle,
Yeah.
like random pairing is so crazy
Yeah.
because also Omegle went out of business pretty much because they kept getting sued for putting
That's
together
right.
predators
With
and children
minors.
were being
Yeah.
traumatized and
Mhm.
trafficked and abused and CSAM was being shared through there. And so to recreate that when that's all open source information is
Yeah.
just so negligent to me.
Right. Right. And it hits home for me too, Haley. I know for you as well as your kids are getting older. I've got kids who are some of them are teenagers and older, but I've got a couple kids still in elementary, and one in particular,
Mm.
he is Mr. Construction Man. So anything Minecraft or Lego. And I look at even just the screenshot of this, and he's asked me probably no less than 20 times, can he play Roblox? Because he sees it. It's sitting there featured and he really wants to play it. And I do
Mm.
think there's a lot of elements in it he would love, and building his own. I think he would love doing that to build his own game for other people. But it is a hard no, not even close. Never going to let it happen. But I can understand why a parent sees it and goes, "Oh, that looks like the Minecraft game, or that looks like Legos. Are those Lego pieces? Let's let them play." because it's so
Mm,
appealing. It's truly aesthetically appealing to kids, and it gives parents that sense of safety. So all of it just feels so kind of dark when you really pull back the layers and see what's going on underneath. And this was just, I spent 30 minutes on this morning as I was
wow.
just digging through some more stuff on Roblox. I bet if we spent more time and really dug in, there's probably even layers that we don't know about. And we've spent a lot of time looking into Roblox. So,
Yes. Yeah, and it is such it's just so disturbing because we have talked about Roblox before even on this podcast because there's been news about it.
yeah.
Louisiana state AG, I believe also the Kentucky state AG, at least I think it's at least a
Was it
dozen
Florida too?
families. Is
Yeah,
it? I think
it
I
might
saw
be.
another one. Yeah,
Yeah,
everyone's been starting to sue them and call them out for these problems, which is why they've launched some supposed solutions. But if at this stage direct strain total strangers can still chat with 5-year-olds, clearly those
yeah,
solutions are not well vetted or thought through enough. And
right.
and
And
and then
just to be
unfortunately,
clear too, they are claiming age verification is on the way. What that's going to look like, how that's going to work for young kids who don't have IDs, I don't know all these details. What's going to stop you from still pretending to be 10 and
mhm,
talking to other kids who are that? So I don't know how that's going to work. I am curious to see how it plays out. So when that it's supposed to launch around the end of the year, beginning of 2026, maybe. So we'll see what that looks like. Because again, our goal is not to say we want companies like Roblox to not exist. We want them to be safe. That's the ultimate
yes,
goal. Is we want it to be safer, and it's completely unsafe right now. So that's kind of
yeah.
our goal as an organization. And honestly, for me personally, as a dad, I want these places to be safe because I do see the benefit.
Yeah, and kids, it's so popular, kids want to be on them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. We want them to be safe. We want them to do the right thing. So we'll
Hmm.
evaluate. It'll be interesting to see how their age verification measures roll out, but just their history of slow and ineffective solutions doesn't make me
Yeah.
optimistic.
I know.
I would love to be proven
Yeah. Or their
wrong.
CEO saying, "Parents, just don't let your kids use it if you're nervous about it." Like, okay, you're really
Yeah.
hearing us. Great.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's led to cases like this really sad case of this child, like you shared, who was, what was he? He was 13 when he was groomed
Yeah.
on Roblox. Just
Yeah,
awful.
he
I
was
think,
13 and someone posed as a 16-year-old. This and we have to make sure we say alleged sex offender was
mm,
posing as a 16-year-old and during as you can even the title here, a pet simulator game, right? A game that's very kid friendly, whether you're middle school or
mm,
elementary even. And then eventually shifted that conversation, like I mentioned, to Discord, and was offering Roblox gift cards. You have to realize this too. You can't access some of the really fun looking, cool looking content in Roblox without money, and you need gift cards. In some cases, these Robux even. And so
mm,
people will offer to pay you directly with in-game currency or real world currency. And so a lot of times that exchange happens elsewhere. But the connection begins on Roblox, and as the dad says, he set up all the parental controls he could, and it sounds like he checked all the boxes he was supposed to as a parent in this case. And just 30 feet down the hall in his bedroom, the parents didn't know this kid was going through it. Only discovered it because he was, what does it say? I think he was repairing the yeah, it was a crack on the phone of the son, and he was replacing the screen, and then a message popped up from this alleged perpetrator, and that's when the dad realized what was going on.
gosh, just, I mean, that's so scary that such a matter of chance, pure luck, like he said, is what alerted them to this situation. And there's
Right.
two things about this that really stand out to me. Number one, that the father said that they turned on all of the parental controls
That's right.
and this still happened, which again goes to, and so often these parental controls, like, just make the platform safer, just have automatic safeguards for
Yeah.
kids because they're so inefficient. And
Right.
then the fact that the family didn't really even know about this except for this pure happenstance is really disturbing. Tim, like, as a dad, I
Mm.
mean, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Like, how do you, because a child could be in this situation, your own child could be down the hall, be sharing explicit photos under threats and feeling duress and
Right.
blackmail from a stranger online. And I think everyone assumes that their kid will come to them before it ever gets to this point. But it
Right.
just is not the trend.
No, it's not. And it's also there's a these people who are targeting kids, these predators, these bad actors, these alleged perpetrators. I want to make sure I'm using the right terms here. But these
Mhm.
folks who get on here and are targeting our kids, they're not dumb. They know
Mhm.
the right things to say to make that child feel comfortable. They know how to make themselves sound like someone their age, maybe even someone from their school in some cases. And they can help the kids take those guards down. So even those conversations maybe you had with your kids, they can usually work around them. So to me, it's more about access to our kids that shouldn't be
Mhm.
given to these perpetrators. And I think as parents, it's the advice that we always give and will continue to give. Talk with your kids. Be aware of what spaces they're in. If they're on social media, you should be on there too, so you can see what's happening there. You should know platforms like Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite and whatever else they're using for their fun, entertainment, free time. Is there a website they use for little flash games? You should know what's on there. Go and check that website
Mhm.
out. Yes, but there's an element of responsibility on the platforms themselves to not give access to our kids. I mean, direct access to our kids
Mhm.
where they are able to so quickly pivot them into a really dark place. So I do think there's an element of parental responsibility. I never want to downplay that. As a dad, I bear a lot of responsibility for what happens in my home and with my kids. Absolutely. But in the same way that car companies don't say, well, there's seatbelts if parents want them. So parents install them if you'd like. Otherwise, your kids don't need seatbelts. It doesn't make sense. Like, why
Mhm.
would we make that optional? Why would we
Yeah, sold
protect kids
separately.
optionally? I don't understand that.
Mhm.
And I know we use the seatbelt analogy a lot, but there's so many other analogies we could use. I don't know why they make it the parents' sole responsibility when it comes to online space, as if that doesn't have real world harm. I just think that's a huge mistake we're
Mhm.
making as a culture to say that companies have no responsibility in the digital world, but they do in the real world. Like you can't sell cigarettes to a kid
Yeah.
or beer to a kid just because a parent didn't sign off on parental controls. Like that's not how it works. So
Yeah.
I do think that needs to be addressed. And Roblox is a great example of it because it's one of the most popular. We have to admit, it's one of the most popular. What is it? 110 plus million daily active
Yeah.
users is what they claim. And I
Wow.
think I want to say it's 60% of those are minors, something in that ballpark. About 2/3 are minors. So there's a lot of ways you could crunch those numbers, right? There's a lot of kids on this platform, and there's also a lot of adults on this platform. And that's just those who are self identifying as those ages because there's no verification
Mhm.
that's happening right now either.
And I want to, and I think you raised so many good points, and one of those being that these predators who are trying to target and abuse kids online are smart. Like they've done it before,
Oh,
very
yeah.
typically. They have a bit of
Hmm.
a script. They know the things to say, the manipulation, the ways to get a kid to divulge a little bit, to gain trust, to maybe say one thing
Hmm.
that they wouldn't want a parent to know, and they just start escalating kind of
Yeah.
the feeling of urgency that the kid has to comply. And I think that when we really think about the fact that this is a situation of adults targeting and hurting kids, it also takes away some of the sole focus on parents and the sole focus
Mm,
on, which sometimes to me feels like, well, parents, you need to tell your kids how to protect themselves, and kids need
right.
to know what to look for. Kids need to know not to talk to a stranger, not to tell them their address or what have you. And of course, that kind of education around digital safety is important, but so often,
Yes.
like, it can't stop there. It can't stop there. We can't put a kid in this situation and expect them to have the tools to protect themselves against a predator who's intentionally disassembling those
And
tools.
there's a
For
there's
a
a human nature piece of
12-year-old,
this too,
ugh,
Haley. When you were a teenager and you were told don't do something, don't look at something, don't try something, were you always 100% like, yes, you got it. I'll never try. I'm never curious. I'll never want to experience what you're trying to keep back from. Like, I know I wasn't that way. Now, whether or not you made
Mhm.
that decision depends on a lot of different factors. I realize this, but many kids and teenagers, you can talk to them, but all of us in our human nature, there's going to be a curiosity there. Well, why? Why
Mhm.
can't I cross that line or that boundary? Or what is in that experience? I kind of just want to see. And so there's an element of whether it's rebelliousness, curiosity, an element of innocence to it. Like I thought it looked fun. I do think that parents need to have these conversations. Absolutely. The kids need to be trained on digital safety. Absolutely. Look for some warning signs and those kind of things. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen to you or to your kid. We hear that from every survivor family. Every parent
Mhm.
of a kid who's been through some sort of digital abuse or exploitation, all of them have said, I didn't think it would be me. Like not us. We
Yeah.
talked about this. We have all the safety
Mhm.
measures up. I've locked down my house. It's like a digital fortress. No one can get in, and somehow this still happened to us. So I think it's both. It's important conversations on safety, absolutely, but there is a responsibility of these platforms who are occupying so much of our attention as a culture. In my opinion,
Mhm.
they bear a lot of responsibility to make it safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to another, unless do you have any final thoughts on Roblox, Tim, before we move on to Instagram? Another,
I mean, if I can just be really blunt, in my opinion,
yeah.
if another parent asks me about Roblox, I'll say don't let them use it. And
Mm,
I mean, we are a family that enjoys entertainment and video games and all kinds of fun stuff. I have a lot of fun recommendations for you for platforms, games, even multiplayer fun stuff like that, where you can create that is safe for you and your family. And how Roblox is not one of them right now. And maybe someday,
mhm,
hopefully someday, it will be. But right now, it is not. So that's my main advice for parents: is that's a platform I can confidently recommend against letting your kids use right
mm,
now.
mhm. I completely agree, and it's sad. It's sad. We want them to do better, but man, they've got a
Yep,
long way to come. A long way to come.
agreed.
Unfortunately, another company that is a frequent guest, in a way, a frequent topic on
Yeah.
our podcast is another Meta entity. This time we're talking about Instagram. And there have been multiple news articles that have come up on some adjacent issues. Our organization, we really focus on sexual abuse and exploitation, and we talk about the full spectrum of sexual abuse and exploitation. So, there's a lot that everything from pornography, child sexual abuse, sex trafficking, AI deep fakes, there's a lot that we cover. There's a lot of other topics that are related, but not in our central focus. But I think that these two articles that have come out both are worth still us taking a moment to look at. And one of those
Hmm.
is this article about eating disorders that has come up from Instagram. And some of you might remember there was a recent hearing where they talk about some whistleblowers from Meta talked about how the company suppressed internal research about how its platform harmed kids, for example, with virtual reality safety and other issues. But this is a recent article, some previously unpublished stats around eating disorders and body dysmorphia content and how children have been being exposed to this. And so this study, I don't know, Tim, if you had a chance to look at this, but they surveyed a number of teens. I think it was over 1,000 teens, and to see who had harmful impacts in views about their body from using Instagram. And they saw that those who often felt bad about their bodies after viewing Instagram, that
Wow.
eating disorder adjacent content, that's how they define it, eating disorder adjacent
Hmm.
content made up 10% of what
That's
those teens
crazy.
saw on the platform.
Yeah,
10%. Can
those
you imagine
numbers are
just
wild.
scrolling
Man.
some
Yeah.
eating
Yeah, I'm
disorder
looking at this
content?
too, Haley. And it kind of
Yeah.
reminds me a little bit of that study that was done on mainstream in quotes pornography platforms that would show. I think it's in our Not a Fantasy report, which you guys should go check out.
Mm,
I think it was somewhere in the 8 to 10% range for brand new visitors with no history of using the platform at all. I think it was 8 to 10% of the content shown. I think it was that number was of violent
mhm,
content. So it reminds me
mhm,
of that as well, where it's what are they doing? What is this bait they're throwing in the water? What is it they're trying to do? I'm trying to think through like what's the end game for platforms to show content like this. And I think we know in the pornography industry, it's all about getting them hooked, getting them addicted, knowing that they're going to need more and more and more. And I think with social media, what I'm curious what you think about this. Is it just about engagement? Like we know that with this kind of content, kids will click on it. And even though it's negative, we see it with news and politics a lot too, that gets more engagement. So let's just throw the bait out there and see if we get a bite. Is that kind of what it is, do you think? The algorithm's trying to get you more hooked as a teenager on some of this
Mm-hmm.
stuff?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's trying to get someone hooked. And there's an interesting quote in later on in the article where one of the researchers basically said, "Well, it's not possible to establish the causal direction of these
Oh, here we
findings.
go.
Are
Yeah.
the kids who are having body dissatisfaction, you know, are they is it because they're having body dissatisfaction that the algorithm is therefore
Mm,
giving them more of that content because they're more react
okay.
interactive with it, or are they getting that content and then having the body dissatisfaction? I think it's probably a vicious cycle, and I think it's some of both, because I think the algorithms
Yeah.
are trying to get you hooked and therefore showing you more of whatever it is that you're interacting with. And
Wow.
unfortunately, I mean, interacting can include hovering, right? Like it's not
Right.
just
Yeah.
liking, commenting, subscribing. It can just be maybe you're scroll, and then you kind of pause and go back to look
Where
at
you
an
slow
image.
down. Oh my word. Yeah.
You slow down, and that eyeball time is being tracked. They know that you're hovering over that image, and then they can show you more of that. But you can see so clearly here with
Wow.
this eating disorder content how harmful that gets for children. I
Yeah.
mean, children die every year from this. So it's just really
Wow.
awful.
I'm scrolling down too in this article, Haley, and it talks about how they're from Meta. So their
Mhm.
spokesperson had this statement about trying to be in line with PG-13 movie standards for what's shown to teenagers. So they've kind of picked a benchmark to try to match up with, which I understand the logic behind that. They're saying we're just trying to match up that content there, but in this study, Meta said that its existing screening tools, which are designed to catch violations of platform rules, were incapable of detecting 98.5% of the sensitive content the company believes might not have been appropriate for teens. 98.5%? So it can't
It
detect
was
most of the
not
inappropriate
capable.
content? What? That's
It
shocking to
seems
me.
like way that's so crazy. That's so crazy and efficient. And I don't know if this was covered in this same article, but what was it? Something like some study came out that 65% of Instagram teens safety mechanisms were proved to not work.
Oh, yeah,
It
we
was a
do have that one.
significant percentage. It was a
Yeah.
significant
Here we
percentage.
go.
Oh, do we have it?
It's this one.
Two-thirds,
Two thirds. Yeah.
64% of safety tools on Instagram were found to be ineffective. At that point, you don't have safety tools.
Right.
You have PR claims.
Right.
That's not a safety tool. Can I'm trying to think of any other industry where something that fails like two-thirds of the time,
Mm,
let alone 98.5% of the time, you would be sued to oblivion. You would not be able to
of course.
function. If your card
Of course.
exploded two-thirds of the
Mhm.
time, they would not work. If like child if seat belts, you know, we're going back to these just like
Yeah.
common things.
I know.
If they
Yeah.
failed two-thirds of the time, those cars would not get off the lot.
Of course. Of
It's
course.
it's unreal.
You know, the
And
Meta
that
whistleblower hearing, if people haven't seen it, I highly recommend they go back and watch it. It's so eye opening to have two former Meta researchers sit before uh, members of Congress and talk about what they did and didn't do at Meta because of how they were directed and how resources were, and in many cases weren't, funneled into that space. How things were essentially covered up. Data that was known was covered up, or at least just not addressed or completely ignored. It was very eye opening. And one of the things that you just mentioned came up a number of times, and that was this done just so Meta could say it was done? And they both
Mhm.
emphatically were like, yes. They want to be able to say, look, we've done the X amount of research on safety. We've hired this many researchers to make sure things are safe. What they're not doing though is acknowledging the data that comes back from those researchers or the studies that
Mhm.
are done. They're not doing anything with that data. They're just saying we did the studies, we did the
Yeah.
research, and it's safe. It's like no, it's not. That's the part that's shocking to me is that they can make these public claims like you're saying on safety, and yet we continue to hear
Yeah.
story after story after story, and even data like this on how it's unsafe. And it's
Yeah.
not just Instagram; it's the rest of Meta, and honestly, we see it across all the social media platforms. It's just that Meta is obviously one of the most popular and one of the ones in the spotlight right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it always goes back to that Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act and how the courts have interpreted that to give this broad immunity from liability, which is why they aren't being sued to oblivion
Mhm.
successfully the way that a car manufacturer could be, because they have
Right,
what I think is a really a misinterpretation of the law that has shielded them from that. But with
right.
98.5% not being able to identify the harmful content that you're trying to identify, that just feels
Mhm.
almost willful to me. I just
Yeah.
can't imagine. And that's where this, while the eating disorder content is related to our issues, it's not exactly in our issues, but it just shows that continued philosophy that of how
Mhm.
these platforms are treating safety writ large. And that's also what was really evidenced by this latest CBS News article as well, that I believe that we have. Yeah, here it is. Hundreds of Instagram accounts pushing graphic real life violence to millions of people. So this article took a deep dive into Instagram Reels and
Yeah.
how it's not just occasionally a violent video maybe sneaks through, that there's actually a
Mhm.
whole underground economy of people who are posting violent content on Instagram that would violate their terms of service, things like
Right.
murders, and
Mhm.
how, and then, anyway, so let's just stop there. That there's
Yeah.
this whole economy of people doing this. I think they found more than
Yeah.
600 Instagram accounts that are
They
posting
did.
these kinds of really
Mhm.
horrific gore videos. What was
Yeah.
your reaction to this, Tim?
I mean, it's shocking in the sense that it's happening, but it's also not that shocking because we know that they're much more interested in profit over people, much more interested in engagement over protection. And I think that has just shown itself out in this story. And Meta has, of course, come out and said, hey, we've made some corrections. This was in February. And just to use some more recent examples, my son, who's on Instagram, he's in college, he saw the Charlie Kirk murder instantly, many times.
Mm,
And that was shown on Instagram many, many times. I know eventually it was
mhm,
removed, and I think it's much harder to see it now from what I've heard, but I don't think the problem has been fixed. It's feeding it to you.
mhm,
Actually, one of our favorite comedians even made a joke about this. Nate Bargatze has a joke where he's like, I just wanted to log in to see whose birthday it was, and I guess I'll watch this death video that's already playing now. Like, it's one of those things where everyone knows it. It's just kind of common knowledge that Instagram is going to serve up offensive and hard to watch stuff. And if
mhm,
you're not really paying attention, if you're just in that doom scroll mode, your your mind, especially if you're a young person, is going to be inundated with this content, whether it's the eating disorder adjacent content, whether it's this gore content we're talking about, or maybe it's that sexually explicit kind of pushing the boundaries of what Instagram allows content that could eventually move you into a space of being exploited yourself. We know that
mhm,
this is the pattern that is followed. How can we again, to me it's like bait in the water. And which hook are
mm,
you interested in? Which hook are you weak to? Because it's going to be one of them. Could and same with Roblox, same on Instagram. Is it the violence? Is it the sexually explicit material? Is it something around eating disorders or around drug use or around self harm?
mhm,
And I think that the bait is out there. And these platforms, because the algorithm has gotten to the point where it's just interested in you hovering, like you mentioned, you watching a
mhm.
little more, you clicking like, you sharing it, it's going to try all these little pieces of bait till it gets the one that hooks you. And I think it really works, especially on teenagers.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking about that conversation of how the algorithms work too with gore content is so disturbing because, of course, I mean, it's shocking and disturbing to see really violent content. And the article describes many scenarios of people who are posting this kind of content. And of course, if you see that in your feed, just as a natural human reaction, you spend an extra moment on that video than you would just someone talking to camera. And the way that that can then just drive you deeper into this rabbit hole is so disturbing. And the fact, what I found so interesting about that article was this underground economy of accounts and people who are intentionally posting and promoting this kind of content on Instagram as
Right.
well. They gave one example of, I think, a college student who said he has 12 phones and runs more than 40 graphic content pages, has between those 10 million followers. And
Yeah.
they talk about how there's a lot of banned advertisers. So certain industries aren't allowed to advertise on Instagram, rightly so, gambling, crypto, and this is where it gets into our issues, porn agencies. The pornography industry
Yeah.
is not allowed to overtly have advertising, post advertising on Instagram, but
Hmm.
they subvert that and are paying these graphic content pages to embed promotions among the gore content that they're posting. So I thought that that was fascinating because obviously this is on two levels. Number one, obviously content is able to get through that would violate Instagram's terms of service consistently
Hmm.
enough that there's a whole underground economy that is
Yep.
based on that because you can reliably get that content through the safety protocols, and so it's worth monetizing. So that speaks to Instagram's failures of safety. And then the other piece that's just very fascinating, this article unfortunately did really not dig down into the way that porn agencies are related in this, but they did
Hmm.
say that porn agencies are involved in paying for these things, including things
Yep.
like promoting OnlyFans, which is
Hmm.
very disturbing because, of course, we know that there are and have been and continue to be people who are groomed and recruited on OnlyFans
Yep.
and are sex trafficked on OnlyFans and child sexual abuse materials on OnlyFans. So just the continued promote for that company to be tied into this is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and not surprising at all either. I mean, I know we actually a recent episode, maybe it was last month. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Victoria Sinis, who was part of a formerly part of a OnlyFans recruiting agency, talks about this and the way that they used platforms like Instagram.
Mm,
I think Instagram was probably their most used one, and that's where it begins. And you build an audience, build a following, build engagement there, and then pivot them into an OnlyFans account where then start to pay you. That's one of the ways they can get around some of the advertising
mm,
elements on places like Instagram is they can get you into an environment where now it costs a subscription, and so it's totally worth their time and effort to to do whatever means are at their disposal, whether it's through some of this shocking, violent content to get your attention, get your follows, and then maybe team up with them to promote other content that doesn't technically break the terms of service on Instagram. But then in your link in bio, you've got a link to the OnlyFans where you can see more and you can subscribe to. And it is just this. It's like this slow. It's almost like being frogs in the boiling pot of water, where
boiling
like the
water.
temperature
Yeah.
slowly turned up, and you don't realize what's happening until it's too late. And I think there's a reason that a lot of these companies employ really smart marketing minds. A lot of these
Mm,
algorithms, I think, were designed with at least consultation, if not direct input from marketing experts who know these are the check boxes to hit along the way, and you'll keep them hooked. And oh, by the way, we've learned this about teenagers over the years. So do these things, and you'll get young people's minds hooked as well. And
mhm,
so this is so disturbing to me, the idea of these violent accounts. And we even saw in this article something about how people can build up these accounts and then sell them, and they can do this really rapidly to make anywhere from 1 to 3+ thousand dollars per sale. So they'll just build up a huge account
mhm,
following using really shocking content, and then they sell it. That person can delete all that content but keep the followers. And so this is how they're making money. This is why, if you're wondering, what's the point of this? What's the point of showing all this shocking, horrible content? It generates a lot of views, gets a lot of engagement, a lot of followers. then they can sell those accounts off. And that's just one
Mhm.
way they can make money with it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of others as well.
Yeah. And that means that Instagram's making money too because
Oh yeah,
whenever people are engaged and following spending time on there, that's a moneymaker. It's really
that's right.
really disturbing. So, it's it's helpful Tim as we're wrapping up our time just to see there's a couple of through lines too between Roblox and Instagram where
Hmm.
Instagram also has kind of promoted a number of safety features and
Yep.
Instagram teens claiming that they're going through all their safety mechanisms and improving them. And once again, my mantra, I want them to do better, but I'm going to be
Hmm.
skeptical until I see it
Same.
in
Yeah.
reality because it can sound so
Yeah.
good in a press release and then entire dark economies can be based on reliance that they're not actually going to do it in an efficient way.
That's right. And we even heard from those
Mhm.
whistleblowers that the claims that are made about the amount of research and investment and staff that goes into this are misleading at best and just direct lies at worst. But even in their
Mhm.
statement responding to this article on on CBS News, I think they claim that they spend, I forget what it was, $30 billion and 40,000 staff dedicated to this. And the whistleblowers are saying a much different version of that story, that they were often so short staffed they couldn't even do the most basic of research and
Mm.
implementation on safety. So there's definitely two different versions of the story happening. But the thing that checks out for me is that when they're able to point and say, look, we did the research, we've hired the people, that's what they claim. That's what they put in their press statement. But as the whistleblowers highlighted for us so eloquently, that doesn't mean any changes or safety improvements actually happened. It's all
Mhm.
just grandstanding because I think it's more than just an unwillingness to do it, an unwillingness to dedicate resources. I mean, Roblox made $3.6 billion last year. I mean, they have no shortage of resources, and Meta, of course, makes so much money, and they have so many resources at their disposal. I think it's because they realize this is part of what makes their platforms so popular, so addictive,
Mm.
and makes so much money for them. I think this is a huge element of it for them. This dark side of it, the dark content, whether it's violence, eating disorders, or around our issues with exploitation. So I
Mhm.
do think it's profit over people. It's just another example of it. And I don't want to minimize it or oversimplify it, I guess. I'm not trying to do that. But ultimately, that's what it comes down to is the almighty dollar. And until they have that threatened, I don't think they're going to make changes. Even no matter how much we say things and how many episodes we record, and we'll keep doing this,
Mhm.
but how many episodes we record where we talk about the issues that are happening on these platforms, it's not until that their pocketbooks are threatened that they'll make a change. So I'll go back to what you said about Section 230. That is a
Mhm.
major step, not the only one, but that is a major step in making sure that they can be held accountable for what's happening on their platforms. Again, not to ruin these companies, but to make them reprioritize things internally and
Mhm.
make it safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll share a link in the show notes. And I really encourage everyone just take 30 seconds. It doesn't even take you a full minute to just open up that link. And we have a pre written email that you can send to your elected representative calling on them to change Section 230. And now is a very important time for you to be making this ask. There's conversations happening on the Hill, there's interest. The
Mhm.
legislators are seeing that these problems seem systemic and that every why is it that every major online platform is not prioritizing child safety online? It has to do with their incentives. These conversations are happening. I know that no bill is formal yet, but by you taking those 30 seconds to send that email to your legislator, hey, if you're feeling really fired up, give them a call. Phone calls are
Yeah.
logged in a very intentional way on Capitol Hill. Every day they
Mhm.
report on how many calls they get from constituents, what topics they cared about. They really get attention. And you can just read off 2 or 3 sentences from the draft email, even. You don't have to be an
Yeah.
expert on these issues to just raise your voice and make your ask clear. And it makes a huge difference. So just really encourage everyone to take that action.
That's right. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And by the way, they've been wondering where's the wave of parents that are going to say something? I think it starts with all of you who are watching or listening right now. I think you have to join us
Mhm.
and let your voice be heard. like Haley's saying. Otherwise, their incentive is lower on the both of the legislators as well as with these companies until they start to see, oh, this is actually an issue. This isn't just some folks from this organization who are raising the alarm. It's parents too. It's our potential customers that we could be losing. So then you'll get
Mhm.
their attention for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim, so much for joining. It's so lovely to see you on this side of the camera. We will be chatting with you more and more, I'm sure. And thank you all so much for joining us as well. Please take a moment also to like and subscribe, share this with a friend, and thank you so much for joining us in Ending Sexploitation.